There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. This precious human life, rarely encountered, is easily lost. Now that I have life and opportunity, may I practice the Dharma wholeheartedly. Mahayana refuge. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. Invocation of the lineage. I give thanks to the guidance of my teachers. For the lineage of the teachers before them, I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened. May their vows be completely realized. And may I cultivate these perfections with their guidance. 7 practices of the Bodhisattva. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings. Generating love and compassion. May all sentient beings be free from clinging and hatred. Being close to some and distant from others, how wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from clinging and hatred. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness and the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from suffering and the causes of suffering. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from clinging, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this. Please stand and turn to page 4 of your liturgy book for the Heart Sutra. Great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokita Karma destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no seeing, and so on, to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, hath no wisdom, and no attainment, since there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva lives by prajna paramita, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, and therefore no fear, far beyond elusive thinking. Right here is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by prajna paramita, attaining anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore set forth the prajna paramita mantra, set forth this mantra, and proclaim Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Parsam, Gate, Bodhisattva. Infinite realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. All that is and we ourselves come forth in perfect harmony. We offer this sincere and devoted practice for the many beings of the six worlds, and dedicate it in grateful thanks to the strength and sound practice of the great Heartland Sangha and its teachers. May our virtuous actions be cleared from all interferences, and may our vows be fully realized. We especially dedicate these merits to Mike, Corin, Jerry, Matt, Emil, the Simone family, Evan, Carly's mom, Sarah, Soke, Roger, the Ardner family, Yaman. May they have peace and healing. And to Margaret, Jeanette, Maggie, Mark, and Patsy at the time of their death, as well as those whose names we hold in the silence of our hearts, and whose names we now voice aloud. May we live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma, and may we realize the Buddha way together.
Please prepare for Zazen. We will now recite the Sangha Covenant, now on page 8 in your liturgy book.
We, in possession of Bodhisattva, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder and wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude to the teachers of this lineage and our connection to one another, covenant to support each other by upholding precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others.
Please be seated. Turn so you can make eye contact with the teacher and sit comfortably. And in a moment, we'll recite the Lankavatara Sutra on page 8 also.
On opening the sutra.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. This has been a week of non-doing for old Rinsen, and I'm so happy about that. Many will know I live partly in an academic life. I have a professor position at the university here, and there are actually, amongst the many sorrows, there are some joys there, and one of them is this thing called break, winter break. There's still work that comes home. There are syllabi to be created for the next semester, grades to be entered, cranky students to console, or not. But there's, there was some time. And last year, there was no option for me to use it that way because the temple was in deep need of much attention for the underbelly of things. And I take it as some evidence to our growth that this year that's not so much the case, and I'm very grateful for that. It speaks to how much work has actually occurred in the past year. But I did want to speak a little bit about how fresh the temple seems after even just a week of not being here. You know, sometimes when you're overly engaged in the obvious and the mundane and the daily, whatever that is, we can kind of, lose touch with it, right? As wonderful as the thing or the person or situation or relationship may be, if we're constantly in contact with it, we can kind of forget it. We can cease to appreciate it. If you've ever been, had an experience of fairly robust health, and then poor you, a toothache comes along, and suddenly the world is a toothache. The cosmos is not but a toothache, right? And then finally, hopefully, this resolves. And, you might have a moment or two where you feel the relief of the non-toothache, but largely it goes unnoticed. You just go right back. And this once great thorn in the side having been removed, you forget about it, right? You know what I'm saying? On to the next distraction, on to the next problem. So just kind of waiting for life to kind of shake it up doesn't always do the trick. I mean, if it did, everybody would be doing much better. Because life is definitely shaking everybody, right? We're all in the tumbler. But to be able to take a conscious period to step back from whatever it is, and particularly the things that are the most important to you, I would say. Very important to know how to withdraw and how to move into some time of solitude and some time of non-engaging, even these most precious and important of things. Because it's only in that gap or in that distance that we get a chance to encounter it fresh. Sometimes it's rare, but I get a chance to travel sometimes, which I'm grateful for when it comes along. And one of the most startling things about being in a position to go to a different country and see some different architecture and hear some funny accents and eat some different food is actually to come home and see your home with fresh eyes. Do you know that experience? Have you had that experience? You think you're going to see something else, but actually one of the main fruits is you come back and go, wow. You see your own country, your own space differently, more broadly, more deeply. And in a certain way, this is what happens in Zazen. If you're really sitting well and you're sitting correctly, then in that period of Zazen itself, you're completely letting go of all the things, whatever they are, how much beauty and love they require and demand and deserve. Still, in that period of Zazen, let them go. Completely disentangle from every aspect of whatever your current moment happens to be. Joyous, sorrow-filled, mundane, nothing remarkable, whatever it is. Drop that. And then when you re-engage, when you come back to life, you again breathe air and look around and notice this form, this place, these people. How amazing. I think we can all relate to moments where somebody, our perception is actually doing really well. But in their own minds and hearts, they cannot see it. Perhaps that's been us. Now, the sutra itself, the Lankavatara Sutra, has some very important pointers for us today. We're continuing on in this chapter about discipleship, and the sutra now turns its attention to a different level of engagement. And these are I think a way I would encourage you to relate to these is these are pointing out different circumstances or practice situations that you can find yourself in. You know, imagine a really, really seasoned coach who's kind of seen it all, pointing out, you know, this is where an athlete can get stuck. It can look this way, or, you know, a different place it can get stuck, you can look this way. And imagine here we have some field notes from a student of such a great coach pointing out a particular place where a young, aspiring athlete can in fact get stuck without knowing it. And let's listen to what it has to say to us. The third class, the sutra continues, are known as arhats. These are earnest masters and practitioners who belong to the once returning class. By their spiritual insight, they have reached the 6th and 7th stages. Now, right away, don't let your mind be burdened by ranks and status and terms and stuff. Just here's a scene, here's a situation you can find yourself in. This practitioner has thoroughly understood the truth of the twofold egolessness, the egolessness of things, the egolessness of the self. They have thoroughly understood this. And they have thoroughly understood, they have comprehended the imagelessness of all of reality, the non-fixed selfness of all things, the non-self of the raindrop and of the wind and of the candle flame and of you and me. With them, there is no more discrimination, nor passion, nor pride of egoism. They have gained exalted insight and seen into the immensity of all the Buddha lands. That sounds cool. By attaining an inner perception of universal mind, they are steadily, let's pause for a second, all these amazing accomplishments, right? It's a pretty nice sounding list. I'm good with this. Understood the truth of egolessness and imagelessness, no more discriminations, no silly things, no pride or egoism, exalted insight, seen into the immensity of all the Buddha lands. You know, the Buddha lands, 10,000 bodhisattvas on the tip of a pin, right? Billions and billions, you know, invoke Carl Sagan for a moment. Billions. You've seen into all of them, right? Carl Sattva. Really, I mean, he had a big impact on me. Remember those Cosmos shows? I'm dating myself, but there was an original series, and it was great because reliably my dad would go immediately to sleep on the couch, and I was transfixed by the latest. So I recommend them to you. Anyway, attaining inner perception, this is now talking about the Dharma eye, inner perception of universal mind. Remember, the sutra lays out a very specific and clear guideline here. There's the mind of sight and sound, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, intellect, language. Then there is sort of the alaya consciousness, the sense of self. And then beyond that, there's this universal self, the storehouse consciousness, right? And the universal mind is the mind of Buddha, which is perceived directly from the Dharma eye. Prajna perceives this true eye. The intellectual mind cannot. It's important to keep that clear. Some things will just never make sense to the intellectual mind, and they don't have to. Some things need to, right? Your nose does not really have to see things. Your ears don't have to taste them, but the nose has to smell and the ear needs to hear. Like this. The intellect has a job to do. But what is it? Now, having attained all this awesomeness, they are steadily purifying their habit energy. Habit energy. The force of the past, of prior moments of volition, your background, your culture, the language that you speak, the assumptions that you've never critically examined, perhaps those that you have but still cannot shake loose, those you've examined and hold to and hold fast to, knowingly or not. This habit energy continues, and this is a very important point of training, because if you have the idea that if you could just get into deep enough a state somehow that suddenly you would emerge as some being of rainbow light or something, and you would have no challenges or problems, you could simply float where you'd like to go and bring things to you through the forests or whatever. You've got to, it's a kind of an interesting fantasy, but it's not, it doesn't line up that way, okay? It's much more miraculous than that. It's much more ordinary than that. You can see, you've understood, the intellect has done its job. You actually can tolerate some clarity around this impermanence and stuff. And yet, the karmic habit energy and the karmic force of years, if not decades, of thought and action and speech still has some impetus towards it, right? You turn the wheel, let us say, but it's not a sports car, dude. This is like the Titanic. This is a really big boat, and you turn the wheel, and the boat's going to think about it for a while, okay? And there's a lot of force still going this way, and you're like, well, no, wait, I've seen through this, and your boat is still heading right into that iceberg. And you're like, but I know this isn't. I turned the wheel. What do you want from me? It takes time. It takes time, man. Don't be surprised by that fact. Students come in here and they have a very, let us say, a moment of deep peace or clarity of one kind or the next, and then give it a minute, and then all the old stuff is having its way again. But it's different because now you're aware. You know there's an iceberg there, and you understand the danger you're in, and you have turned the wheel. Stay the course, okay? This is not the time to, muck about because you're not getting instant results. This is not an instant result situation. There are instantaneous experiences. These experiences matter, but the integration and digestion of those experiences takes a long while. So be patient with yourself. Accept yourself. Accept and honor your own process, please. This is critically important. One of the most insidious barriers that I find myself somewhat impotent in the face of is a student who doesn't take themselves seriously, that doesn't honor their own process, not really. Something will happen, if it hasn't happened already, where you will begin to actually honor your own process. Not because some authority figure is patting you on the head or giving you a gold star, or because your peers all agree, or because you're able to influence people. No, you simply trust your own experience because now you have enough experience with it. And you're connected to the lineage, and you're connected to the Sangha, and you have noble friends with meaningful and relevant conversation, and important, a place of cloistered sanity to come in and to check with. This has always been a necessary ingredient. You can only get so good just playing guitar in your room. If it's ever going to turn into something more than just that, you have to connect with other people. Ew. You have to connect with other people. Right? And you have to actually be vulnerable. Ooh. You have to let yourself be seen. And you have to be willing to deal with that. And I tell you, I have deep concern, I suppose, as everyone who gets to a certain age does inevitably for the younger, But this on-tap amusement that's accessible now, very, very dangerous. Do not trade your life for a stream of amusements. This constant and chronic amusement, this is death by 1,000 amusing little cuts. Do not play with it. I'm really serious. You know how you can sit there and scroll away an hour? Yes? Dude, you can scroll away a week. Yeah? You can scroll away a month, a year. We're all in the midst of this psychological experiment that none of us really signed on to, but it is playing out. And the Dharma says, watch out now. Watch out. The God realm of pleasantries is there's no safety there. There's nothing sure about this. It's not about getting to a pleasantly distracted state where you're not in pain or agonizing over something or feeling bad. This is not acceptable because it's a dream. You have to be able to unplug from that stuff. And you'll find your mind does it anyway. Your mind will sit there and generate, and you can do that work. So even with all of these deep accomplishments and understandings, an arhat, a pretty serious practitioner, still has this karmic habit energy to deal with. Don't be surprised by that. The arhat has attained some measure of emancipation, enlightenment. Now here it gets kind of interesting. The jhanas, the samadhis, and their whole attention is given to the attainment of nirvana. But the idea of nirvana itself causes them some consternation. Because in fact, they have the wrong idea of what nirvana is. Now, the sutra is pointing out that a person at this stage or this kind of mode of practice, they'll be very, very drawn to deep meditation states called jhanas. Okay, samadhi. This is where the mind gets into a very concentrated state. And at this point in a person's practice, that becomes very, very attractive. They have an intellectual understanding of egolessness, and they have a deep attraction to samadhi and just kind of rocking on that samadhi. And this is a good thing, but it's not good enough. They're thinking about the alleviation of suffering, but the way they're thinking about it is still a little bit not fit in there correctly just now. And it's subtle. But the notion of nirvana in their mind is itself divided. They discriminate nirvana from themselves and themselves from nirvana. Nirvana is this other shore that I have to get to. I have to see it. There's this goal out there, and I'm back here, and I've got to get to that goal. So I've intellectually understood impermanence. I've tasted the succor of the deep samadhi states, and I've got to attain it. And in this discrimination of nirvana from self and self from nirvana, discrimination also from self and other with self. So still, when a person in this space looks around, their default setting is to see others and things and situations and people and amusements and terrors, all as discrete facts of reality with which they align or contest. This is insufficient. This is not the total truth. This, dear one, is not acceptable. Bodhidharma himself who is said to have brought the Lankavatara, said this way: entering through principle is awakening to the essential by means of the teachings. It requires a profound trust that all living beings, both enlightened and ordinary beings, share the same true nature, which is obscured and unseen only due to mistaken perception. Entering through principle requires a profound trust that all living beings, both awakened and ordinary, share the exactly same nature. This is obscured and unseen only due to mistaken ways of seeing the world, mistaken ways of seeing the self and seeing other. If, Bodhidharma goes on to say, you return from the false to the true, dwelling steadily in Zazen, then there is no self nor other. And the ordinary people and the great sages are one and the same. In this way, one may abide unmoving and unwavering, never again confused by ponderous written teachings or dreidling orations thereof. Complete, ineffable accord with principle is without discrimination. It is still, it is effortless. This is called entering through principle. That's something of Bodhidharma's way of saying it. This person has attained some of the fruits of self-realization, but still thinks about and discourses on the jhana states, on subjects of meditation, of samadhi and the fruits of it. They say, oh, there are difficulties, but I am disengaged from them. But this is a double fault. They both denounce the vice of the ego and then they cling to its fetters. So long as this person continues to discriminate notions of jhana and jhana state, samadhi practices, subjects for samadhi and jhana practice, even discriminating right knowledge, the first step on the noble path, and the truth itself, there is inevitably a bewildered state of mind. And they have not attained perfect emancipation. Emancipation comes with the acceptance of imagelessness. This acceptance is not the same thing as understanding. Okay, it says earlier on that a cat who's at this level has understood imagelessness. They've kind of sussed it out cognitively. They kind of get the gist of the thing. But in their cells, in the marrow of their bones, they have not actually accepted this. Which is why, when they look around, they still see I, thou, self, other as the only way of seeing things. Can you grasp this? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this thing was written centuries ago. But it's describing an intimately prescient insight into the way we suffer right now. They are master of the jhana states. Jhana, mispronounced by the Chinese as Chan, mispronounced by the Japanese as Zen. Master of the Zen states, you could translate it. But to reach the higher stages, one must pass beyond samadhi, beyond the jhanas and the immeasurables, beyond the world of no form, beyond the bliss of samadhi into the samapadis. Samadhi, samapati, not the same. That's clarify this a little bit, okay? There are different levels of samadhi, okay? Depending, 4 or 5, depends on what little rubric you check out. But point being, there are empirically verifiable gears, like your car has gears. There are gears of mind which you have. Whether you use them or not is a different thing, but they're there. And when you start to really get into these gears of samadhi, they go from the more coarse to the more subtle. So an initial experience of samadhi can often be accompanied by a great, overwhelming sense of relief, giggles, joy, having taken off this heavy backpack that no longer serves you and actually feeling relief from that. And so when you sit like that, that can feel very encouraging, and it's a good thing. But eventually that feeling itself becomes problematic, that you start chasing that feeling of relief again. I'll have one more beer, get that buzz back. I'll just sit a little longer and get that samadhi back. It's kind of the same mind. Careful, be very careful, right? Now these samadhis go from the more coarse to the more subtle, and the highest of them is called no form. This is where you sink into a very, very deep, it's almost like a really deep, dreamless state of mind that you encounter in a really deep sleep, where there's a faintest wisp of consciousness there. You're not dreaming about anything. There's no sense of self and other, but there's a wisp yet of awareness. This is something like the no form samadhi. But even this itself is not the goal. You see, because Samapati is talking about non-dual awareness. Non-dual awareness itself. Thought about very simply, when someone comes into training at the temple, the first thing we need them to do is to learn how to concentrate on their breath. We give mindfulness of breathing. Within Zazen is like the entryway, because you've got to start by giving the mind an object to focus on. And so the practitioner takes up mindfulness of breath, counting the breath. And this very naturally, the mind begins to settle and begins to stabilize, and a kind of equanimity begins to arrive. And the being pushed around by all the Starmandrach ceases, you know. But that's not enough, because there's still a subject and an object, and the actual freedom of nirvana, it's required to collapse this separation. There's a very different experience from like being mindful of breath and being one with the breath. It's not the same experience at all. So this non-dual awareness does not depend on a fixed form. One does not need to be into a formal posture of Zazen to experience and attain non-dual awareness. This is not true. However, if you don't understand and have experience with the basic classic forms, the odds of you actually getting there and recognizing it are almost zero. I can't say zero because it's a human thing, but it's incredibly rare. This samapati leads to the cessation of thought itself, the cessation of self and other awareness itself. But it's not a blackout. It's not. It's not some like annihilation of self. You know, when you, like if you want to see nothing right now, okay, go ahead and close your eyes and look deeply. Close your eyes and look. Now what you're seeing is not nothing. What you're seeing is darkness. You're still perceiving darkness. That is not nothing. That's darkness. Does that make sense? So if you open your eyes, now you're perceiving differently, but you're still perceiving sight. Who is it that's perceiving? People think that these deep states are something like a really deep closing of the eye and you shut it all out. It's the opposite, dear one. Your eye opens really wide and you see all as not other than self. This practitioner then, the jhana practitioner, the subject of jhana, cessation of thought, once returning, never returning. These are all divided, bewildered states of mind. It's not until all discrimination is abandoned and there is perfect, that there will be perfect emancipation. Now, this is interesting, this turn that the sutra makes here. Many people will not see this one coming, perhaps yourself. The sutra has a further note for a person at this place. So they've got a cognitive understanding, but they haven't really integrated it. They're really into the samadhi states, but they're there, and they enjoy those samadhi states kind of a bit much. That's what they're talking about all the time. That's what they're interested in. But they haven't yet seen into non-dual experience. And then this. Thus the arhat, some master of the jhanas, participating in these deep samadhis, but remains unsupported by the Buddhas. This person will yield to the entrancing bliss of the samadhis and pass into nirvana. But this is not the nirvana of the Buddha. So what it's saying here is that a person can get stuck in this space in a very real way, and they just disappear into the enjoyment of their samadhi states and take that to be nirvana, because they can enjoy it. But this is not it. Because they are unsupported by the Buddhas. What does this mean, this unsupported by the Buddhas? What does it mean to be supported by the Buddhas? And the sutra moves on. This line remains. And I ask you, how do you understand what this means? This being supported by the Buddhas. You see, again, no one can do this for you, but you cannot do this alone. Both of those are exactly true at exactly the same time. Supported by the awakened ones. Mentors, guides, people who have gone further down this road than we have. Community. Oh, that thing about vulnerability again. The people business. But I think there's more to it than just that. I think this business of taking refuge and of turning the mind and the heart and the body with sincerity, with deep sincerity, to this refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, this heart reaching out for help and for connection. This is a necessary quality. One who is immersed in the consolations of samadhi has no time to seek refuge in anything else. They've got it figured out. So they take a lesser route. But the Buddha, the mentor and the guide, will be there saying, yeah, that's pretty good there, kid, but there are levels you have not yet seen. They provide a necessary and helpful irritation. They come and disturb your beautiful samadhi and say, hey, ring the bell. Well, I don't want to ring a bell. I just want to sit here in samadhi. Yeah, I know. That's why you need to get up and ring the bell. And pay attention to the timing of the periods while you're at it. Tethering me to the mundane world? Yeah, that's right. The support of the Buddhas manifests. And larger than that, there are these mahasattvas. There are things that we can't know. That's true. In fact, the vast majority of stuff is things that we can't know by a long, long, long shot. And within all that vast unknowing, there is some way that this query, this asking for help is heard and received and subtly answered. This has to happen. Somewhere along the line, you've got to break out of that isolated, ironic, critical, skeptical kind of distance, and you've got to actually say, okay, I'm in, and actually get connected. Not because it feels good all the time, but because it's actually what you need. The support of the Buddhas might be the sweet nectar of Kuan Yin, relieving the passions and troubles, but it might be the sword of Manjushri coming right down on you. It can be both. I'm very grateful for the support of the Buddhas in whatever form it takes. The gentle whisper, the dragon roar. It's all the support of the Buddhas. Thus, the practitioner perceives that the triple world is no more than the mind itself. But their tranquil practice is not perfect every minute of their lives, for there is something of this effect producing, some grasp and some grasping still, some lingering trace of dualistic egoism. They are still bound with the habit energies of mind and passion, addiction and hatred. And they are still intoxicated with the sweet wine of the samadhi's bliss, not to be confused with the true bliss of awakening, by the way. So long as their minds are confused, they cannot attain a clear conviction as to the cessation of all causes and the actuality of perfect oneness of all things. In their minds, the self-nature of things is still discriminated as good or bad. Therefore, their minds are confused and they cannot pass beyond this stage. Nirvana is possible at this stage, but they pass into their own nirvana. It is not the nirvana of the Buddhas. So what does all this come down to? Having been away from the temple for a week, I come back and smell the incense and hear the sounds and see the sights and the people, and you all look so beautiful. And this place is so amazing. It really is. You're amazing. But just coming here because it feels good and it's amazing is not sufficient. You should come here because the support of the Buddhas is here. And that can show up all kinds of ways. But it always manifests compassion. It always says, hey, don't be satisfied. Don't just hang out in the rakusu or the robes or the role. It's not about having a Zen lifestyle with the appropriate Ikea accoutrements. It's about something really real. Like as real as your own life and your own death. That level real. So may we all be connected to the Buddhas. May we attain a good, solid intellectual understanding of these things, but not be satisfied with it. May you and all of us become very familiar with the samadhis. You need them. It's important to have that. Nobody can do this work without them, but they are not sufficient in of themselves. Don't be satisfied with just a little low-grade relief. It's not enough to be 10% happier. Realization is on offer. The real deal. May we take it up.
To